Hello, this is your Writing Center consultant, Dr. Erik Mortenson. I want to talk a little bit about APA style in this PowerPoint. So what is APA? This is the American Psychological Association's guidelines for documenting research. And, as the name implies, it's used in psychology, but it can also be used in a bunch of other disciplines, including other branches of social science, as well as business, nursing, and anthropology, etc. So what does APA actually regulate? So three things. One is the in-text citations, two, reference lists, and three, document format and style. We'll talk about each of these as we go. So in-text citations. An in-text citation is a brief parenthetical reference that indicates the source of ideas or language that have been borrowed. So the idea here is you have sort of two elements to a proper citation. On the one hand, you have to alert the reader, near the source, near the quote or the paraphrase you're using, where it's coming from, and the in-text citation does that. And here's an example at the bottom in the red. So you can see there's a quote, and then that the part of red lets you know where that came from. Okay, but you also need a reference list, right? Reference list lists all the sources used in the paper written in a special format. Here's an example. So basically, these two work again in tandem, where you have the reader reads the paper as they're reading. They're getting information that you've borrowed. They have a short in-text citation, and based on that, they go to the end of the paper and they see the references, and they can find the article if they want to get it. That's the idea. So, what are the purpose of these two things? First of all, it avoids plagiarism. I mean, if you don't cite, or you don't cite properly, you give the appearance that these ideas are yours. If they're not your ideas, or if they're not your words, then you're plagiarizing, and that's a serious problem. It also shows borrowed ideas and language. So a lot of your work, especially the research paper, obviously, is meant to be a work where you develop a thesis, but you do so using other people's ideas. So you're showing the reader, hey, these are the ideas. These are ideas I've taken, or things I've borrowed, and now I'm going to work with those to make something new. And the APA citation in text and works cited allows you to alert the reader to that. It also gives proper credit to authors and sources. Obviously, people that wrote something, published something, they deserve credit, and this gives them credit. Okay, so again, I'm going to cover some of the basics in this PowerPoint, but there's actually quite a lot of possibilities when it comes to citation. I can't cover them all. I can't cover every possibility. Where do you go? Well, these days online is probably the easiest. If you go to Noodle Tools, Purdue's OWL, or NightCite, probably Purdue's OWL is probably the best. If you go online, these sites will have extensive information on APA citation. You can also use a writing manual. I mean, APA also has a style guide book, but you're probably not going to want to go there first. It'll be easier to go online or get a writing manual. Okay, there are three parts for an APA citation. So you have a signal phrase, which is optional, your in-text citation, which we kind of just discussed, and a reference list, we also just discussed, right? So here's an example of an in-text citation, a signal phrase in an in-text citation. This is in red. Legal scholar Smith, 2013, points out that, and then you have the information that you borrowed, and then it ends with the page number. And then that corresponds, as I mentioned before, this works with the reference list, so that if when the reader's reading, they go Smith, okay, if they want to find that article or that source, they can go to the reference list, they look for Smith alphabetically, and the 2013 alerts them to which Smith source, if you have more than one, you're using, and they can find that source, right? And this is a signal phrase in the sense that you're signaling the reader where you're getting that information. You're getting it from Smith. Now, you don't have to do that. In fact, you might want to vary up your style so you're not constantly using the same according to, right? You want to kind of vary it up. You don't have to have a signal phrase. So here's an example where a signal phrase is not used. You have basically the information that you're borrowing, and at the end, you put all the information at the end. Smith, the year, so the name, the year, and then the page number. So here's another example where you've got two different, the same information, but, presented two different ways. Both of them are fine. In the first, you don't have a signal phrase, right? You just introduce the quotation yourself, and then at the end, you put the in-text citation. And the second, you have a signal phrase saying that this author Lee, 2016, you mention him, and then you don't have to put him, you have to put that name and that date again, right? So you notice that in both of these, in the end, you have 3 bits of information. It just depends on where they come. That's the only difference. And both are fine. Now, what if you don't have an author, right? The source doesn't have an author. What if there's no page number? What if there are multiple authors? There's a million questions, right? What if it's from a newspaper? What if it's from a newspaper online? What if it's from a blog? What if it's an interview I did? What if there's a million possible ways to get information, to get sources? What do? Again, don't worry. A writing manual or online resource explains what to do for almost all of these types. Pretty much for any type I can imagine you having. There will be an online in the writing manual or an online resource will explain how to do it, right? But remember, you always have to check. Every source is different, right? And you can Google this. You can just say, how do I cite a newspaper article with 2 authors in APA? And chances are something will pop up and it'll give you a way to do it right there. Very, very easy. Okay, here's an example. Here's a practice example. How would you cite this? And you can pause if you need to, all right? And I'll give you the answer in a second. All right, so here you go. Here's the answer. Again, don't guess, check the rules. This is not, this isn't just intuitive, right? It's a list of rules made up by a group at the APA. If you guess, you'll probably guess wrong, right? So this is one of these things where you have to just do it exactly like you're told to do it, follow the rules. It's a question of details, right? And you just have to kind of be willing to kind of put the time in and do the details correctly. On the flip side, it's easy. Doesn't require a lot of mental effort to figure this out. It just requires some detail orientation. Okay, now what doesn't get cited? Things that are common knowledge, right? If everybody knows it or most people know it, you don't have to cite it, right? Your own claims, right? Your thesis statement, claims you make in the paper, those you don't have to cite those, right? Now, if someone came along and wants to quote you from your paper, they would have to cite it. Finally, your own elaboration, analysis, or explanation doesn't have to be cited, right? So, when you refer to somebody's, you bring somebody in as a source of information, provide a quote or a paraphrase, you cite it, and then you discuss it. When you analyze it, you don't have to cite your analysis, right? Just the original material that you borrowed. But if you're in doubt, cite. It can't go wrong. Okay, 2, the reference list, right? So you have to have a reference list at the end of your paper. This is important. Otherwise, the reader can't find the information simply with the in-text citation, right? That's just to get them to the reference list so they can get the full citation. Here's an example, right? You can stop and take a look if you need to. Alphabetical, right, by last name. How would you make a reference list entry 4? Here you go. This is a practice. Pause if you need to. And there it is at the bottom in blue. Remember, this has to be done exactly like APA demands. So punctuation, capitalization, italics, indentation, spacing, all this has to be exactly like the samples. All right, that's key. Don't try to just come up with your own. Don't just put an extra space or comma, right? An extra comma. If it doesn't need a comma, don't put one, right? Then it's wrong. All right, so just follow it like you're supposed to. Okay, finally, APA document format and style. So be aware that APA also provides formatting guidelines for your paper itself, right? How it looks and what goes where. So here's an example. First page header, you have a running head. This is on the first page, colon, short abbreviated title all in caps. On the upper right, you have the page number. In the center, double spaced, you have your title, your name, and your school. And again, this is supposed to be followed exactly like it says. Now, obviously, don't copy someone's title, but copy the format precisely as it's shown. Same thing with the second page. You have a header at the top. You drop the running head. You have the page number, right? Everything's double spaced, left aligned, and you indent the paragraphs. Same thing with the reference list. Hanging indentation, double space, alphabetized, right? This is how it's supposed to look. If you're in doubt, look at this. Yours should look like that. Why do we care about all this? Well, first of all, professionalism, right? In your academic career and in your your when you go on to whatever job you're going to go on to, you want to show that you're professional. You can follow the rules. You're detail oriented. And someone that can kind of follow these rules and do this right, chances are if they're paying attention to the small stuff, they're paying attention to the big stuff, right? So it sort of looks good. Visually, there's a reason APA does this. It looks better. It's easier to read, right? And it just looks cleaner and properly done. And that's going to influence your reader, right? It's better for you. Shows discourse awareness. It shows you you're aware of the rules and you follow them. And it's also a requirement in the course, right? In many courses, you're supposed to do it right. You might lose points. This allows you to not lose points, do the right thing, get full credit, right? So it's your job as the writer to make sure everything's done correctly, right? Before you turn the assignment in. Again, use your writing manual, go online, make sure you're doing it correct, right? This is very important. It seems trivial and maybe sort of a small detail, but it's those kinds of things that can make a big difference in both your paper, your grade, and in your career as well. A final note, just be aware, there's multiple forms of these formatting, these styles, right? So you might hear MLA is a lot, Modern Language Association has a format, Chicago has a format. As a published author, when I've dealt with many different presses. Sometimes the press has their own format, and sometimes for instance, British presses have a different format. So be aware that APA isn't sort of the only format, right? It's just the one we use the most, and the one you'll probably be using. Okay, so you can do this in other ways, but the idea is that you figure out what your teacher prefers, and you do it the right way according to the format that you're using or you're told to use. Finally, remember, we're here at the Writing Center to help you. Any stage of your paper writing, from getting ideas going to properly citing, we can help you with, right? And any class, any kind of writing we can help you with. I've helped people with resumes and cover letters. Whatever you need writing related, please come visit us. Here's a link, or here's the URL for our site. We hope to see you there. All right, good luck with your paper writing, and yeah, have fun.